The arena lights dimmed, the crowd's roar rising like a thunderstorm rolling across the horizon, and in that charged atmosphere two giants prepared to collide in a battle that promised raw power, national pride, and unpredictable chaos. When a spectacle like this is announced, when brute force meets disciplined fury, you know you are about to witness something unforgettable. On one side stood a man whose very name echoes through combat sports history, a towering force of nature who once shook the foundations of mixed martial arts with sheer size and explosive aggression. On the other side stood a warrior forged in a completely different tradition, a man who carried the spirit of ancient combat into the modern cage, ready to test his sumo-bred power against an MMA legend. This was not just a fight. This was a clash of worlds. This was Bob Sapp versus Osunaarashi Kintaro. Representing the United States, Bob Sapp entered the arena with the unmistakable aura of a showman and a destroyer. A former NFL player turned kickboxing and MMA phenomenon, Sapp built his reputation not merely on victories but on spectacle. At over 350 pounds in his prime, with arms like tree trunks and a physique that seemed carved from granite, Sapp overwhelmed opponents with intimidation before the first punch was even thrown. His early fights in Japan turned him into a cultural icon, and his battles under the bright lights of major promotions became must-watch events. For many fans, Sapp symbolized the era when size and power alone could tilt the odds in dramatic fashion. Across from him stood Osunaarashi Kintaro, born Abdulrahman Ahmed Shahalan, a man whose journey to the cage was unlike any other. Hailing from Egypt, Osunaarashi made history as one of the first African-born professional sumo wrestlers in Japan. His path through the rigid ancient discipline of sumo wrestling demanded relentless training, mental toughness, and an understanding of leverage and balance that few MMA fighters truly possess. Sumo is not merely about pushing. It is about explosive starts, controlling center gravity, and dominating space within seconds. Osunaarashi carried that foundation into this bout, transforming sumo explosiveness into a weapon inside the cage. As fight night unfolded, the tension inside the venue was palpable. Cameras flashed. Commentators debated strategy. Would Sapp attempt to bulldoze forward with wild power shots as he had so many times before? Or would Osunaarashi use his sumo footwork, that lightning-fast Takiai-style charge, to close the distance and smother the American giant? The beauty of mixed martial arts lies in its unpredictability, and here, unpredictability reached its peak. When the referee called both men to the center, the size difference alone commanded respect. Though both were massive, their frames carried weight differently. Sapp's musculature was visibly imposing, every movement radiating brute force. Osunaarashi, thick and grounded, seemed rooted to the canvas itself, his stance lower, his center of gravity stable and calculated. The final instructions were delivered. Protect yourself at all times. Obey my commands. And just like that, history was about to be written. The opening bell rang and instantly the energy shifted. Sapp moved first, stepping forward with the heavy-footed confidence of a man used to dictating pace. His jab, though not textbook, carried frightening power. Even a glancing blow from him could rattle the senses. Osunaarashi, however, did not retreat in panic. Instead, he advanced with controlled aggression, testing the distance, hands ready to clinch. The first exchange came like a collision between freight trains. Sapp swung a looping right hand that whistled past Osunaarashi's ear, the wind from the punch alone stirring the crowd into a frenzy. Osunaarashi responded by driving forward, chest to chest, seeking to nullify Sapp's striking advantage. In that moment, sumo instincts took over. He lowered his base, attempting to off-balance the American giant, pushing upward through his hips in a maneuver reminiscent of a powerful Takiai charge. Sapp resisted, muscles straining visibly as he fought to maintain balance. The cage rattled behind them as both titans grappled for control. It was not elegant. It was not subtle. It was raw, primal combat. Sapp attempted short hooks inside the clinch, trying to create separation. Osunaarashi answered with relentless forward pressure, pinning Sapp and testing his endurance. One of the great questions heading into the fight concerned cardio. Historically, Sapp's stamina had been scrutinized. His explosive style often burned energy rapidly, leaving him vulnerable in prolonged exchanges. Osunaarashi, coming from sumo, was accustomed to short bursts, but the transition to MMA required adaptation. The first minute alone felt like an entire round of intensity. Suddenly, Sapp created space with a shove that sent Osunaarashi stumbling half a step backward. That brief opening was all he needed. A heavy right hand connected flush against Osunaarashi's jaw, the sound echoing across the arena like a gunshot. The Egyptian warrior absorbed the blow but felt its power. The crowd erupted. Sapp smelled opportunity and surged forward, unleashing a barrage of wild, hammering strikes. Yet Osunaarashi's resilience shone through. Instead of retreating in disarray, he clinched again, smothering Sapp's offense and dragging the fight back into grappling range. This was where sumo leverage became evident. Using underhooks and body pressure, he attempted to trip Sapp's base. The canvas trembled as both men struggled for dominance. For a brief moment, time seemed suspended. Sweat flew under the lights. The audience leaned forward collectively. Then, in a dramatic shift, Osunaarashi executed a powerful outside sweep, leveraging his weight and timing to send Sapp crashing to the mat. The impact thundered through the arena. Gasps turned into cheers as the underdog found himself in a dominant position. From top control, Osunaarashi unleashed short ground and pound strikes, heavy forearms raining down. Sapp, experienced and dangerous even from his back, attempted to tie up his opponent's arms. He used his massive strength to create space trying to stand. The struggle was relentless. As the round progressed, fatigue became visible on both fighters. Breathing heavy, muscles tightening, each movement required immense willpower. But this was the essence of MMA, a test not just of strength but of heart. Midway through the second round, after another explosive exchange, Sapp managed to land a crushing uppercut in close quarters. Osunaarashi staggered. The moment shifted again. Sapp pressed forward with renewed intensity, throwing heavy hooks that forced the referee to watch closely. The crowd rose to its feet. However, in a testament to his warrior spirit, Osunaarashi refused to fold. He clinched once more, absorbing punishment while regaining composure. His strategy remained clear: survive the storm, close distance, and wear down the bigger striker. As the final round approached, both fighters carried visible damage. Faces swollen, bodies glistening with sweat, they embodied the brutal beauty of combat sports. Every strike now carried double the weight, not just physically but emotionally. Pride, legacy, and national representation hung in the balance. The closing moments delivered pure drama. Sapp, summoning every ounce of remaining energy, launched a final offensive blitz. Osunaarashi, rooted and determined, countered with a decisive push that forced Sapp into the cage. A short but powerful elbow found its mark. Sapp's knees dipped. The referee stepped closer. Another strike connected. And just like that, the fight reached its climax. Whether by TKO or decision, the result mattered less than the spectacle itself. Fans had witnessed a collision of styles rarely seen: American power versus Egyptian sumo discipline, brute aggression versus calculated leverage. It was a reminder that MMA remains the ultimate proving ground, where no style reigns supreme without adaptation and heart. In the aftermath, both warriors stood battered but respected. They had stepped into the cage not just to fight, but to entertain, to inspire, and to prove something to themselves and the world. The handshake that followed symbolized more than sportsmanship. It symbolized mutual acknowledgement of the war they had just endured. If you felt the intensity of this clash, if you believe in the power of combat sports to unite cultures and showcase human resilience, then make sure you stay connected. Subscribe for more legendary fight breakdowns, epic MMA storytelling, and HD fight content that brings you cageside every single time. Hit that like button if you respect warriors who step into the arena without fear, and share this battle with fellow fight fans who crave real action. The roar inside the arena had barely settled when the story of this collision began to take on a life of its own. Because fights like this do not end when the final horn sounds. They echo. They spark debate. They create new narratives. And in the case of Bob Sapp and Osunaarashi Kintaro, the aftermath was just as compelling as the chaos inside the cage. As the referee separated the two exhausted giants, both men leaned heavily against the fence, chest heaving, lungs burning from the effort of moving mountains. The crowd, still on its feet, chanted and cheered in appreciation. This had not been a technical chess match filled with calculated feints and subtle grappling exchanges. It had been primal. It had been raw. And it had been unforgettable. For Sapp, this fight represented more than just another appearance on a fight card. Throughout his career, critics had often questioned his consistency, his motivation, and his durability under sustained pressure. Yet here, he had shown flashes of the explosive menace that once made him one of the most feared heavyweights in combat sports. Every time he planted his feet and launched those looping bombs, the arena collectively held its breath. Even when fatigue crept in and slowed his hands, the threat of his power never disappeared. Osunaarashi, on the other hand, had entered the cage carrying the weight of expectation from fans who viewed him as a pioneer. Transitioning from professional sumo into mixed martial arts is not a simple adjustment. Sumo bouts can end in seconds, whereas MMA demands sustained endurance, versatility, and adaptability. But inside that cage, Osunaarashi proved that the core principles of sumo, balance, explosive forward pressure, and mastery of leverage, can be devastating weapons when applied correctly. The commentators replayed key moments on the big screen. That early right hand from Sapp that nearly shifted momentum permanently. The powerful sweep from Osunaarashi that sent shockwaves through the canvas. The brutal exchanges along the fence where each man tested the other's resolve. Slow-motion replays highlighted sweat spraying into the air with every collision, muscles rippling under strain, expressions shifting from aggression to exhaustion and back again. Backstage, medical staff examined both fighters. Ice packs were pressed against swollen cheeks. Cuts were cleaned and wrapped. Yet despite the visible damage, there was a quiet sense of pride in both corners. Neither man had backed down. Neither had taken the easy route. They had met in the center and fought. Interviews soon followed. Sapp, still breathing heavily, acknowledged the difficulty of facing someone with such an unorthodox base. He spoke about the surprising strength in the clinch, about how Osunaarashi's lower body power made it difficult to maintain balance. He admitted that the sumo background had created challenges he had not fully anticipated. It was rare to hear Sapp speak so candidly about an opponent's physical control, and fans noticed. Osunaarashi, calm but visibly proud, reflected on the transition from the dohyo to the cage. He described how years of sumo training had conditioned him to explode forward without hesitation, to claim territory instantly. However, he also spoke about the adjustments required in MMA, defending strikes, conserving energy across multiple rounds, learning to fight off his back. His voice carried determination. This was not the end of his journey. It was a stepping stone. Analysts debated what the fight meant for both careers. For Sapp, it reinforced the idea that experience and sheer physicality can still create moments of danger, even against unconventional opponents. For Osunaarashi, it was proof that sumo athletes can successfully transition into mixed martial arts if they embrace cross-training and strategic evolution. Beyond strategy and technique, what truly resonated with fans was the symbolism. An American powerhouse whose career spanned continents, facing an Egyptian-born sumo wrestler who broke cultural barriers to compete in Japan. Their meeting in the cage represented more than a sporting event. It symbolized the global nature of modern combat sports. Styles, backgrounds, and traditions collide under one unified rule set. Social media erupted in the hours following the bout. Clips of the most dramatic exchanges went viral. Debates ignited over who controlled the grappling exchanges more effectively. Some praised Sapp's power. Others applauded Osunaarashi's composure under fire. Hashtags trended and fight forums buzzed deep into the night. Training camps also took notice. Coaches dissected footage, pointing out how sumo-style pressure can neutralize larger strikers. Fighters studied Sapp's ability to create sudden bursts of offense even when fatigued. In many ways, the fight became a case study in contrasting approaches to heavyweight combat. As days passed, speculation began about potential next matchups. Would Sapp pursue another spectacle fight against a fellow powerhouse? Would Osunaarashi continue refining his MMA arsenal and seek a more seasoned grappler to test his evolving skill set? The possibilities fueled excitement. Yet at its core, this clash reminded everyone why heavyweight fights hold such unique appeal. When two men of extraordinary size and strength engage, every movement carries consequence. One clean strike can change everything. One perfectly timed sweep can shift destiny. Months later, highlights from that night would still circulate. Slow-motion impacts, dramatic reversals, the deafening roar of the crowd. Fans would recall where they were when they watched these giants collide. And for aspiring fighters watching from around the world, the message was clear. No background is limiting if you are willing to adapt and step into the arena. Because in mixed martial arts, evolution is survival. Styles must blend. Strength must meet strategy. Power must be balanced by endurance. And if this chapter proved anything, it's that when warriors from different worlds dare to collide, the result is something electrifying. If you want more deep-dive fight storytelling, breakdowns of legendary MMA battles, and exclusive HD fight coverage, make sure you stay tuned. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join a community that lives for combat sports intensity. The next Clash of Giants is always just one bell away, and you won't want to miss it. In the end, what truly defines a fight is not just who has their hand raised, nor the numbers on a judge's scorecard, nor even the highlight reel moments that replay across screens for weeks afterward. What defines a fight is the story it tells, about the fighters, about the sport, and about the relentless human drive to test limits. The battle between Bob Sapp and Osunaarashi Kintaro delivered exactly that kind of story, a raw and thunderous narrative carved from sweat, force, pride, and unyielding will. From the very first exchange, it was clear that this was never going to be a technical showcase in the traditional sense. It was a collision of philosophies. Sapp embodied explosive spectacle, overwhelming presence, heavy artillery in both hands, and the ability to turn a quiet moment into chaos with a single swing. Osunaarashi represented disciplined force, low center of gravity, forward pressure rooted in centuries of sumo tradition, and a mentality forged in one of the world's most demanding athletic cultures. When those two energies met, the cage became more than a fighting surface. It became a proving ground for contrasting identities. As the dust settled, the significance of the fight grew clearer. Sapp, often defined by his physicality and early career notoriety, showed that even years removed from his peak, he still carried the kind of power that demands respect. Every time he planted his feet and let his hands go, the danger was real. His presence reminded fans why heavyweights captivate audiences in a way no other division can. There is something primal about watching giants swing with intention, knowing that any moment could bring a sudden, decisive finish. Yet Osunaarashi's performance may have been the more quietly transformative aspect of the night. Transitioning from professional sumo into mixed martial arts is not simply about changing rule sets. It is about rewiring instincts. In sumo, bouts can end in seconds and there are no strikes to the head. In MMA, danger can come from every direction. Punches, kicks, submissions, elbows and tight quarters. To stand in front of a seasoned, explosive fighter like Sapp and not only survive but engage strategically spoke volumes about Osunaarashi's evolution. He did not abandon his roots. Instead he adapted them. Throughout the fight, the exchanges along the fence told a deeper story.